Why healthcare IT projects fail at compliance, not code. Why healthcare IT projects fail at compliance, not code.
That's what we're tackling today. If you've been wondering about HIPAA compliance software development, stick around.
Next up, now, why HIPAA compliance derails healthcare software projects.
HIPAA compliance breaks healthcare IT projects because teams misunderstand what compliance requires. It's not a feature list.
It's a constraint model that affects database schemas, API designs, logging infrastructure, and user workflows at the foundation level.
Development teams approach HIPAA compliance software development like standard enterprise work.
They build core features first, then add security controls before launch.
This sequence fails because HIPAA requirements change fundamental architectural choices.
Database designs need audit fields in every table that touches PHI.
API architectures must support granular permission checks on every endpoint.
Logging systems require tamper-proof storage with specific retention windows.
When you add these requirements after development, you're not adding features. You're rebuilding foundations. Now, let's talk about what technical safeguards does HIPAA require for software. HIPAA's security rule divides requirements into administrative, physical, and technical safeguards.
Software development teams focus on technical safeguards, which drive most architectural decisions.
HIPAA mandates unique user identification, emergency access procedures, and automatic logoff. The regulation doesn't specify implementation details, which creates confusion about what satisfies requirements. For HIPAA compliance software development, access control means.
Now, moving on to how do you build HIPAA-compliant cloud architecture.
Cloud platforms simplify HIPAA compliance but don't eliminate responsibility.
Azure offers HIPAA-eligible services under a business associate agreement, but you configure them correctly. Microsoft maintains a list of Azure services eligible for PHI processing under a BAA.
Using eligible services doesn't make your application compliant.
You must configure access controls, enable logging, and implement proper key management. For teams planning migrations, the HIPAA-compliant cloud architecture on Azure, the full checklist covers specific configurations. Next up, common compliance mistakes that kill healthcare projects. Even experienced teams make predictable errors when building HIPAA-compliant software development solutions. These mistakes reflect governance failures, not technical failures. The biggest mistake, treating HIPAA compliance as box checking. Teams implement obvious requirements but miss the regulation's core requirement, ongoing risk analysis and risk management. HIPAA requires documented threat assessments, likelihood and impact analysis, and mitigation implementation. A checklist approach skips this entirely. We've seen teams pass initial audits but fail when investigators examine risk analysis documentation. The technical controls existed.
The governance framework didn't. Now, next up, modernization strategies for legacy healthcare systems. Healthcare organizations run critical workloads on legacy .NET framework applications. Modernizing these systems while maintaining compliance requires careful planning.
The Strangler Fig pattern for modernization lets you incrementally replace legacy components without full rewrites.
This approach works well for HIPAA-compliant software development because you add compliance controls to new components while maintaining legacy operations. Implementation steps. Now, what does HIPAA-compliant development cost?
Healthcare IT projects cost more than comparable non-healthcare projects.
Compliance overhead adds time and expense, but skipping compliance costs far more in breach penalties.
Expect 20 to 30% cost premium for HIPAA compliance software development compared to similar non-healthcare projects.
This premium covers.
When asking how much does custom software development cost for healthcare, factor in compliance costs from the start.
Under-budgeting leads to corners cut on compliance controls. Let's talk about now the human factor, governance beyond technology. Technology alone doesn't ensure compliance.
HIPAA requires workforce training, incident response procedures, and ongoing risk assessment.
These human factors determine whether technical controls work. HIPAA mandates security awareness training for all workforce members, including developers.
Your .NET development company should provide HIPAA training for team members accessing your systems. Training topics must cover.
Now, moving on to conclusion. Healthcare IT projects fail at compliance because teams treat HIPAA as a checklist instead of a design constraint.
HIPAA compliance software development requires building compliance into every architectural decision, from database schema to API design to logging infrastructure.
Organizations that succeed treat compliance as a competitive advantage. They document risk assessments, train teams, and build governance frameworks that scale. When auditors arrive, they demonstrate controls that have been in place for years, not controls implemented last week. If you're starting a healthcare IT project, invest in compliance from day one.
Work with a .NET development company that understands HIPAA requirements. Build audit trails into your architecture.
Train your team on PHI handling.
Remember, the cost of compliance is always less than the cost of a breach.